Obviously, I would love to have met her.
Catherine looked across the glittering banquet table and immediately noticed it. Diana's pearl necklace resting around Camilla's neck. No voices were raised, yet the atmosphere changed in an instant. Conversations faded, glasses remained untouched, and every eye slowly turned toward the unexpected sight. Calm but unwavering, Catherine brought the banquet to a halt before the royal household could pretend nothing unusual had happened. Before we uncover what this moment could mean for the royal family, be sure to subscribe so you never miss our latest updates. Catherine never looked away. Her attention remained fixed on the necklace, as though a forgotten chapter of royal history had suddenly returned. The state banquet, a prestigious royal dinner held to welcome important guests and demonstrate the strength of the monarchy, had been carefully planned from beginning to end. King Charles hoped the evening would reinforce stability after weeks of private tension. Yet one familiar pearl necklace changed the atmosphere before the first course had even finished. William noticed Catherine's expression before anyone else understood what was happening. He recognized that quiet look immediately. It was not anger, it was deeply held emotion. Diana was more than a historical figure or a royal icon. She was his mother, and every personal belonging connected to her carried memories no ceremony could replace. As Catherine slowly lowered her hands from the table, William understood exactly why. Camilla sensed the room changing around her. Almost instinctively, she touched the necklace, but the gesture only drew more attention. She realized Catherine had noticed it. She also knew William had seen Catherine's reaction. In that uneasy silence, the necklace stopped being a beautiful piece of jewelry. It became a difficult question. Why was Diana's pearl necklace being worn tonight? And why had no one informed William and Catherine before it appeared at one of the most important royal events of the year? King Charles attempted to restore the evening's rhythm. Raising his glass slightly, he hoped royal tradition would guide everyone back to normal. It didn't. The quiet scrape of Catherine's chair echoed across the room. The sound was subtle, yet impossible to ignore. She wasn't creating drama, she was establishing a boundary. With remarkable composure, Catherine asked a simple but powerful question. Why was Diana's pearl necklace being worn this evening? William remained beside her, calm and silent, offering unmistakable support. Across the table, Camilla remained still, facing a question that no immediate answer seemed able to satisfy. That hesitation spoke louder than words. From that moment onward, the banquet was no longer about a necklace. It became a conversation about memory, respect, and who truly had the right to represent Diana's legacy. At the center of the unfolding tension stood 4 members of the royal family, each carrying a different burden. Catherine remained composed despite the hurt in her eyes. William stayed silent, yet his loyalty was unmistakable. Camilla suddenly found herself under intense scrutiny, while King Charles appeared caught between his wife and the future queen. No royal title or formal protocol could soften what everyone was beginning to feel. This was never simply about jewelry. It was about an old family wound reopening beneath the bright lights of a royal banquet. Catherine understood the significance before anyone dared to explain it aloud. Her place within the monarchy had grown beyond ceremonial appearances and official duties. Over the years, she had quietly become the guardian of the values William hoped to carry into the future. The queen consort, the wife of the reigning monarch who shares royal status without ruling herself, held an important place beside King Charles. Yet Diana's personal jewelry carried a different meaning altogether. It represented love, loss, and memories that millions of people continued to protect in their hearts. William kept his attention fixed on Catherine because he recognized the emotion she was trying so hard to contain. Throughout his life, he had learned to hide painful memories behind royal discipline. But this moment reached far deeper than ordinary protocol. Standing beside Catherine meant more than supporting his wife. It meant defending the memory of his mother. Camilla gradually realized that every glance in the room was now directed toward the pearl necklace. What had seemed like an elegant royal accessory moments earlier now appeared to many as something far more complicated. She tried to remain calm, but the growing silence around her became increasingly difficult to ignore. King Charles also recognized the seriousness of the situation. He knew this wasn't about banquet etiquette or wardrobe choices. It had become a question of whether Diana's legacy had been treated with the care and respect it deserved. His eyes moved from Catherine to William, then finally toward Camilla. The silence between them revealed more than any official statement ever could. Catherine never raised her voice, and perhaps that was what made her words so powerful. She had always respected royal tradition, rarely challenging established protocol in public. By refusing to let the evening continue as though nothing had happened, she signaled that an important boundary had been crossed. William remained steady at her side. Outwardly calm, the future king's silence carried quiet determination. Camilla gently lowered her hand once more, but by then the damage had already been done. King Charles attempted to steady the atmosphere, yet even he understood that something much larger had surfaced that evening. The necklace had reopened a story the palace had hoped would remain in the past. But that necklace had not appeared by accident. Its journey to the banquet had begun weeks earlier, behind closed palace doors, long before any guest had arrived for the evening. The banquet had not been interrupted because of a single glance alone. The tension had been building for weeks behind the palace walls. Several days before the state banquet, members of the royal family had gathered for a quiet private memorial honoring Princess Diana. It was a small family occasion held away from cameras, giving close relatives the chance to remember her without public attention. During that gathering, Catherine made one thoughtful request. She asked that Diana's most personal jewelry remain untouched until William could decide how those treasured pieces should be used in the future. King Charles listened carefully. William immediately understood the importance of her words. Camilla, however, seemed to view the request differently. From that moment forward, Diana's pearl necklace became more than a treasured heirloom. It quietly evolved into a symbol of trust and responsibility. Catherine had spoken gently that afternoon, but her message stayed with everyone who had been present. The memorial held inside Kensington Palace carried enormous emotional weight because Diana was never simply a historical figure for William. She remained part of every important decision he made and every memory he continued to protect. Without hesitation, William supported Catherine's request. To him, the pearl necklace represented far more than elegance or royal tradition. It carried memories of childhood, family, and the lasting bond between a mother and her son. He believed Diana's personal belongings deserved greater care than ordinary royal jewelry selected for official appearances. Above everything else, he wanted respect. And he wanted patience. Camilla interpreted the conversation from another perspective. Although she remained polite throughout the memorial, Catherine's words left a lasting impression. She quietly felt that an invisible line had been drawn around Diana's legacy, a line that placed her outside a part of royal history she had spent years trying to become part of. For Camilla, the request seemed less like protection and more like exclusion. King Charles recognized the growing difference between the two women. He understood Catherine's concern. He understood William's emotions. But he also sensed the quiet disappointment beside him. Then Catherine spoke a sentence that remained in everyone's mind. Some memories should be protected before they are shared. She spoke calmly, not as criticism, but as an appeal for understanding. Charles nodded. William lowered his eyes in agreement. Camilla remained completely silent. That silence quietly became the beginning of a misunderstanding that would later return at the state banquet. King Charles never turned Catherine's request into an official palace instruction. He believed everyone present understood the emotional meaning behind her words. Unfortunately, emotions without written guidance can easily be interpreted differently. Palace approval procedures for sensitive royal jewelry remained unclear, leaving room for different assumptions. Camilla believed no formal rule prevented the necklace from being worn. Catherine believed a personal promise had already been made. Between those two beliefs, Diana's pearl necklace quietly waited. So when Catherine looked across the banquet table that evening, she wasn't seeing the necklace for the first time. She was seeing a promise she believed had been forgotten. No one expected Catherine to speak. That was exactly why the atmosphere grew noticeably colder when she finally did. Her voice remained calm, measured, and respectful. She did not accuse Camilla or attempt to embarrass anyone before the distinguished guests. Instead, she asked one carefully chosen question. Why was Diana's pearl necklace being worn tonight without William being informed beforehand? The words settled over the room with unmistakable weight. Catherine kept her hands gently folded on the table. Her composure reflected strength rather than anger. State banquet protocol, the formal customs that preserve order and dignity during royal occasions, depends on everyone maintaining calm. Catherine challenged that expectation without raising her voice, and that quiet confidence made her message impossible to ignore. King Charles quickly attempted to guide the evening back toward normality. He invited the guests to continue with the next ceremonial toast, hoping royal tradition would restore the atmosphere before the situation grew more uncomfortable. But no one moved. For several long moments, every guest seemed to wait for Catherine rather than the king. That brief hesitation weakened the authority Charles had hoped to display throughout the evening. Camilla finally looked toward Catherine and responded. She explained that the necklace had been intended as a respectful tribute to Princess Diana, a gesture meant to acknowledge her lasting place within the royal family's history. Yet Catherine heard something entirely different. To her, the explanation sounded less like remembrance and more like ownership. She felt that Diana's deeply personal legacy had been transformed into a matter of palace protocol rather than family respect. William remained beside Catherine throughout the exchange. His silence became one of the strongest statements in the room. Rather than allowing emotion to control the moment, he asked a single quiet question. "Do you remember the request made during the memorial at Kensington Palace?" The question was gentle, but its meaning reached far beyond the banquet itself. Camilla hesitated. Only for a moment. But that brief pause revealed more than a lengthy explanation ever could. Then Catherine spoke once again. "Respect begins with understanding." The sentence was simple. There was no anger.
No accusation.
Only quiet dignity carried by years of compassion and restraint. King Charles slowly lowered his glass before the next toast could begin. The soft sound echoed across the silent hall. At that moment, everyone understood the evening had changed forever. The discussion was no longer about a necklace. It had become a conversation about who should guide the preservation of Diana's legacy. Camilla remained composed, yet every attempt to explain her decision seemed to make the necklace appear even more significant. Catherine never looked away. William remained steady. King Charles realized the issue had moved beyond personal feelings and into something much larger, the future direction of the monarchy itself. And behind every treasured royal heirloom lies another question. Who approved its use in the first place? Behind every royal heirloom is a chain of responsibility. Someone unlocks the royal vault. Someone approves the selection. And someone decides which pieces of history may appear before the public. That evening, King Charles found himself facing a difficult realization. No one seemed willing to explain exactly how Diana's pearl necklace had been approved. Catherine wanted accountability. William wanted respect. Camilla wanted acceptance. And Charles suddenly realized that control had quietly slipped away long before the banquet had even begun. The king requested to see the official approval record. Within the palace, the Royal Jewelry Office, the department responsible for preparing historic jewels for formal occasions, had processed Camilla's selections through the normal approval system. Ordinarily, such procedures worked without controversy. But Diana's most treasured personal jewelry was never considered ordinary. These pieces carried memories, emotion, and enormous public significance. A senior palace official quietly placed the approval documents before the king. Charles studied the page carefully. His expression changed almost immediately. The authorization had passed through routine palace procedures without anyone stopping to consider the emotional importance attached to the necklace. He had trusted established tradition. He had trusted experienced staff. He believed no one would question a decision once the evening had officially begun. Yet Catherine had questioned it. And now years of quiet assumptions inside the palace were beginning to unravel. For Catherine, the discovery was especially painful. The necklace had not simply appeared by accident. It had passed through careful handling, official approval, secure storage, and multiple palace departments before reaching the banquet hall. Her earlier request had been remembered as an emotional conversation rather than respected as an important family boundary. William immediately understood why that realization affected her so deeply. He had stood beside Catherine during the memorial gathering. He remembered every word. He knew her request had never been about power. It had always been about protecting Diana's legacy. Across the room, Camilla watched Charles continue reading the approval papers. Her confidence slowly faded. She had hoped the necklace would symbolize her place within the royal family. Instead, it seemed to remind everyone that some memories still belonged first to William and Diana's children. King Charles refused to publicly blame Camilla. He would never embarrass his wife before invited guests. But he also knew dismissing Catherine's concerns would only deepen the divide with William. That impossible balance became the king's greatest challenge. If he defended Camilla completely, he risked appearing insensitive toward Diana's memory. If he openly supported Catherine, he risked humiliating the queen consort. The approval documents ultimately revealed one undeniable fact. The necklace had been intentionally selected. It had been officially cleared. and it had reached the banquet exactly as planned. No one had paused to consult William. No one had returned to Catherine's earlier request. Charles quietly understood that a private decision could no longer be delayed. The necklace could not remain around Camilla's neck. Not after Catherine's question. Not after William's silence. And certainly not after the approval record confirmed how it had arrived there. The monarchy could survive many public challenges. But it could not afford to appear indifferent toward the legacy of Princess Diana, while her eldest son sat only a few feet away. Even if the necklace was removed, the emotional impact of the evening had already become impossible to erase. The banquet eventually continued, but only on the surface. The music resumed. Servers returned with the next course. Guests attempted polite conversation once again. Yet the atmosphere had changed completely. Camilla was no longer experiencing the evening as she had only moments before. When she quietly stepped into a private drawing room and removed Diana's pearl necklace, the silence around her seemed heavier than ever. For the first time that evening, she was not thinking like the queen consort. She was simply a woman confronting the symbol that had unexpectedly placed her at the center of a family conflict. 2 senior palace aides accompanied her from the banquet hall. Their role, as always, was to preserve order and dignity during important royal occasions. They described the departure as a brief private adjustment, a routine matter of protocol. But everyone who truly understood the evening knew the real reason. The necklace could no longer remain part of the event. Back inside the banquet hall, Catherine remained beside William. There was no sense of triumph on her face. Only quiet sadness. She had not interrupted the evening to create embarrassment. She had spoken because Diana's memory deserved thoughtful care. William recognized that difference immediately. He remained close to Catherine, offering calm support while guests quietly observed every movement. Meanwhile, Camilla stood alone inside the private room. Slowly, she unclasped the pearl necklace and placed it carefully onto a velvet-lined jewelry tray. That simple gesture carried more emotion than any speech could have expressed. Only a short time earlier, the necklace had appeared to symbolize royal acceptance. Now it reminded everyone that some parts of history required far greater sensitivity. A few moments later, King Charles entered the room. His voice was gentle, but even that kindness carried noticeable distance. Camilla hoped he would immediately reassure her that nothing serious had happened. Instead, Charles spoke with careful honesty. He explained that the necklace would not be worn again at any official engagement until William and Catherine had first been consulted. The decision was delivered quietly. Yet its meaning was unmistakable. Camilla looked toward him with visible disappointment. She asked a question that hung heavily between them. "Are you choosing Diana's memory over your own wife?" Charles remained silent for several long seconds. That hesitation answered more than words ever could. He had tried to protect everyone throughout the evening. Yet in doing so, he realized someone would inevitably feel left behind. Outside that private room, Catherine had already changed the course of the night. William understood it as well. He could see that quiet grief had become a clear boundary. And that boundary had now become part of the future of the monarchy. The necklace could be removed. But the lesson it revealed would remain long after the banquet had ended. Because while one chapter of the evening had closed, another was only just beginning. Later that evening, far from the cameras, invited guests, and formal ceremony, William and Catherine stood together in a quiet private room. There were no prepared speeches, no official palace advisors, no carefully written statements. Only the lasting memory of Diana, the pearl necklace that had crossed an emotional boundary, and an important question about the future they would one day lead. Catherine spoke first. Her voice carried the exhaustion she had hidden throughout the banquet. Away from the public eye, honesty replaced royal performance. For Catherine, protecting family memories had become just as important as protecting the institution itself. The palace might eventually issue a carefully worded explanation. But she knew no official statement could erase what had happened that night. William listened without interruption. For years, he had learned to carry his grief quietly. Yet Catherine's words reached the part of him that would always remain Diana's son. She explained that seeing the pearl necklace around Camilla's neck had not felt like theft. It had felt like something equally painful. It felt as though his mother's memory had been moved without the understanding of those closest to her. That quiet realization lingered between them. Catherine never spoke with bitterness. She spoke with compassion. She told William that Diana's most personal belongings should never become ordinary palace items selected through routine procedures or formal schedules. They deserved careful discussion. They deserved family understanding. Most importantly, they deserved respect. William reached for Catherine's hand. The silence between them changed. He knew she was right. He had no desire to embarrass Camilla or reopen old family divisions. Neither of them wanted revenge. But neither wanted this moment to repeat itself under a different circumstance. Another banquet. Another treasured heirloom. Another painful misunderstanding. A clear boundary was now necessary. Without it, history would continue repeating itself. Before Catherine could say another word, William quietly made his decision. He would ask the king to establish a new private family protocol for Diana's personal jewelry. From that point forward, any item closely connected to Princess Diana would require consultation with both William and Catherine before appearing at any official royal engagement. It was not about ownership. It was about responsibility. William chose firmness without hostility. Catherine chose dignity without resentment. Together, they transformed an emotional evening into an opportunity to protect something deeply meaningful. The future monarchy, they believed, could not be sustained by tradition alone. It also needed trust. It needed understanding. And above all, it needed respect for the memories that continued to shape the royal family. By the following morning, what had begun as a private family concern would no longer remain behind palace walls. The banquet was over. But its meaning was only beginning to spread. By the following morning, the events of the state banquet had spread far beyond the palace walls. Not as rumors. Not as speculation. But as a powerful image that captured public attention. Camilla wearing Diana's pearl necklace. Catherine's composed but unmistakably serious expression. William standing quietly beside his wife. Together, those moments became the story no official statement could easily replace. Catherine soon became the public face of quiet dignity. The palace released a carefully worded statement describing the incident as a private family misunderstanding. But many observers believed the issue reached much deeper than a simple disagreement. For countless people, Diana's memory remained deeply personal. And Catherine's calm response reflected that feeling with remarkable grace. William also found himself at the center of national attention without speaking a single word. Royal commentators described the evening as more than an awkward family moment. They saw it as a conversation about tradition, responsibility, and the continuing importance of Diana's legacy within the monarchy. William appeared not simply as the future king, but as a son determined to protect his mother's memory. Beside him stood Catherine, composed, respectful, and unwavering. Together they represented stability rather than conflict. For Camilla, however, the following morning proved far more difficult. Questions quickly emerged across newspapers, television programs, and public discussions. Should Diana's pearl necklace have been worn at all? Even many who usually supported the Queen Consort admitted the necklace carried too much personal history to appear without broader family understanding. What had been intended as a respectful tribute now appeared, in the eyes of many, to have been a serious misjudgment. One national newspaper captured the moment with a striking headline: "The necklace that silenced the banquet." The image quickly spread across the country. No lengthy explanation seemed necessary. People recognized the necklace. They remembered Diana. And they understood why Catherine had chosen to speak. Outside Kensington Palace, visitors quietly placed white flowers near the gates. There were no loud demonstrations.
No angry crowds.
Only silent gestures of remembrance. That quiet display reminded everyone that Diana's legacy continued to hold a special place in the public's heart. By midday, King Charles realized that carefully chosen words alone could not restore the atmosphere. He could not dismiss Catherine's concerns without disappointing William. Nor could he fully defend Camilla without reopening old emotions connected to Diana. The monarchy faced only one realistic path forward. It needed to acknowledge the importance of memory with greater sensitivity. Because the previous evening had revealed an enduring truth. The strength of the crown is measured not only by its ceremonies or traditions, but also by the care it shows toward the people and memories that continue to shape its history. In the end, the state banquet was remembered for something far more meaningful than its elegant setting, distinguished guests, or carefully planned speeches. People remembered the moment Catherine quietly stopped the evening and asked everyone to consider what truly mattered. Diana's pearl necklace became more than a royal heirloom. It became a symbol of the difference between wearing history and honoring it. For Camilla, the evening ended with quiet reflection. For King Charles, it marked the realization that tradition alone could not resolve every family concern. For William and Catherine, however, the night reinforced something lasting. Respect for Diana's legacy would always require thoughtful care. Catherine never celebrated what had happened. There was no feeling of victory in her heart. She understood that moments of tension inside a family rarely leave anyone untouched. Soon afterward, senior palace officials quietly reviewed how Diana's most personal belongings would be managed in the future. A new consultation process was discussed, one that would ensure William and Catherine were informed before any deeply significant item connected to Diana appeared at a major royal engagement. The purpose was not to restrict anyone. It was to protect memories that carried extraordinary emotional meaning. William accepted the decision with mixed emotions. There was relief in knowing his mother's legacy would receive greater care. But there was also sadness. Protecting those memories had required difficult conversations with his own father. He never believed Charles acted with unkind intentions. Yet he also understood that even well-meaning decisions can sometimes create unexpected pain. Camilla quietly returned the pearl necklace to royal custody. There was no public announcement.
No formal ceremony. No dramatic explanation.
She simply chose to step back. That quiet gesture spoke more clearly than any official statement ever could. It acknowledged that certain symbols deserve greater sensitivity than ordinary royal traditions can provide. King Charles also accepted the outcome. He recognized that a monarchy is strengthened not only by crowns, ceremonies, and constitutional duty. It is strengthened by trust. And trust depends upon understanding the emotional importance behind certain moments in history. Ignoring those feelings risks creating distance between the royal family and the people who continue to cherish those memories. As the evening came to a close, Charles privately met with Catherine. Speaking sincerely, he assured her that greater care would be taken moving forward. This time, there were no formal speeches. No carefully chosen public phrases. Only an honest conversation between family members seeking a better path ahead. Catherine listened quietly. For the first time that day, she believed genuine understanding had begun to replace misunderstanding. Not every wound had disappeared, but an important step toward healing had finally been taken. William remained beside Catherine throughout it all. Together, they had not challenged the monarchy. They had simply reminded it that some memories deserve lasting protection. And that reminder would shape the future far more than anyone present at the banquet had imagined. By the time the palace lights dimmed, everyone understood that the evening would be remembered for far more than an elegant state banquet. It would be remembered as the night one simple pearl necklace reminded the royal family that some legacies carry a meaning beyond ceremony. King Charles spent the final hours of the evening reflecting on everything that had unfolded. He realized that leadership is not measured only by tradition or protocol. It is also measured by the ability to understand the emotions that shape a family's history. William stood beside Catherine as they prepared to leave the palace. Neither of them spoke very much. There was no sense of celebration. Only the quiet comfort of knowing they had protected something deeply important. For William, Diana's memory had never been about royal status. It had always been about family. About love. About preserving the values his mother represented. Catherine understood that better than anyone. She had never asked for recognition. She had never tried to challenge anyone. She simply believed that memories connected to Diana deserved thoughtful care before becoming part of public royal occasions. That belief had guided every decision she made throughout the evening. Camilla also reflected on the events of the banquet. She understood that respect cannot always be expressed through wearing a treasured heirloom. Sometimes respect is shown by knowing when certain symbols should remain untouched. Without public attention, Diana's pearl necklace was carefully returned to secure royal storage. From that moment forward, it would remain under a clearer consultation process before appearing at future official engagements. The decision was welcomed quietly inside the palace. Not because anyone had won, but because an important lesson had finally been understood. King Charles accepted that the future monarchy would depend not only on tradition, but also on empathy, communication, and mutual respect. William and Catherine accepted that protecting Diana's legacy did not require conflict. It required patience. It required understanding. And above all, it required unity within the family. As the palace returned to its usual routine, one message remained unmistakably clear. Royal jewels may symbolize history, but it is the people who protect those memories who ultimately define that history for future generations. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next royal update. We'll see you in the next video.